Wondering how to make your listing presentation stand out from everybody else in your local marketplace? I got one of the best in the business, Brad McCallum, here today. We're going to talk to you and give you a little inside ball, give you an 8-mile strategy, and get you everything you need to have that listing presentation that you've been looking for. All right, Brad, I am really excited about this. Listen, I know a lot of people probably know you obviously through the amazing video stuff you do on YouTube, everything you've done, but what's been fun for me as we've gotten to know each other is really to understand the processes you utilize. And it's very difficult to continue to grow your business without growing with listings. And as you and I have talked, some of the processes you're using on the listing presentation really is something that can be modeled, and I think agents will get a ton of value out of. So if you don't mind, let's kind of just start with talking about this process, what your mindset is when you go into a listing presentation and kind of what your thoughts are going into that.
All right. Well, first off, Jimmy, I love sitting down and chatting with you. And
Me
yeah,
too, man.
super grateful to be here. And this is I think this is going to be a really cool conversation because, a lot of people ask a lot of questions about, the video, like how much does it cost? How do you edit? How do you shoot, script, all these different things. But the biggest thing I think that people miss out on is how to actually leverage these videos properly. And so I dictate my entire listing presentation around leveraging the video content, the exposure, and the audience that we've built for ourselves. And so one of the ways I do this is I start off with this idea of a basic framework, which is called like a minimum level of care. And so usually what I like to do is assume, and I like to address this in the conversation if I'm meeting with someone, I want to assume that they're at very minimum that they're going to be meeting with 2 to 3 other agents. And so if they're going to be meeting with 2 or 3 other agents, all these other agents are going to come in and they're going to be talking about all of the things that they do. And so what as agents have we been taught? We've been taught to break down, that 187 different little things that we do. Everything from putting on a lockbox to, a sign in the yard, and we will door knock the neighborhood and let them know we'll do an open house on the 2nd week and the 1st week and maybe on the 5th week. And we'll do, all this different sets of information. And usually what that feels like to me is it's like a bunch of trumped up nothing, like it's real work for us. Right. But it's not a difference. It's not a differentiator between us and anyone else they're going to meet with, right? So I like to frame all of this by saying, first off, Mr. or Mrs., my guess is that, for a home like this, you're probably only talking to some of the top agents in the city. Is that correct? And they would say, yeah, of course, right? Because they're not going to say, no, we're talking to some real fools out there who don't know how to sell anything, right? And I know that if they're talking to top agents, that these are agents that value themselves and value their services, and they're not going to be coming in and competing on commission or any of these other fronts. So what I like to then do is then say, because I believe our time is precious, I don't want to come in here and start to tell you about all the different things that we're going to do for your listing that I believe you should be expecting from every one of the agents that you interview. So let me start off by just sort of setting the table and saying, here's what I would say falls into a minimum standard of care. And so a minimum standard of care is not just professional measurements or professional continual communication or great feedback or open houses or clear communication or helping you have advice to get your home ready and staged for the property to go live on the MLS. It's more than just drone photography or even some light social media. Okay, so all of these different things, or sign in the yard, or all these different things that you'll see agents come in and describe to you as part of their standard of care. In my mind, that's a minimum standard of care in 2024. So what I'd like to do is spend the vast majority of our time here today just talking about the things that would make me different from the other agents that you might be meeting with. Is that okay? And then people usually then from there say, oh, yeah, of course. And it does 2 things. First off, it also gets them to focus on the thing that got me the meeting in the first place, is likely my personal brand that they've likely followed or saw a few videos, or maybe they've been referred to because of our personal brand and we've worked with someone else. It also gets them to then pre-frame every other agent that they're meeting with and all of those things that those agents are really pumping up and saying, we also do drone photography. And they're like, yes, of course, everyone who's going to even have a chance to list at our house are going to have to do those things. And so the next thing I like to do then is I have to say, well, the next barrier is a lot of agents are doing video these days. So for myself, I like to say, look, the reason why our videos have more worth than I think another agent's in our market videos is because wouldn't you agree that if I tapped 100 people on the shoulder and said, hey, would you like to buy 123 Banana Street? The odds are likely no, right? No one probably wants to, right? If I top 10,000 people on the shoulder, well, there's a much greater odds that one of those people might want to buy the property or might know someone who would be interested in buying a home in that community. And so for me, what that does is I say, well, listen, because we've been doing this for so long, even though I do think that we do a great quality job and we tell a story about the home and we do all these different elements to it, what we've really done at the end of the day is we've built a massive platform. And on top of that platform, we installed a loudspeaker and we've got an amplifier that's louder than anyone else's. And so I can yell about your home to the masses and get it out to more people than anyone else. So a video that gets 100 views versus a video that has 10,000 views, it's completely different. And because these are video views that are organic, these are people opting in, not being forced to see it. And opting in is huge, right? That's the difference between me calling you and saying, hey, do you want to sell or buy a house? Or you calling me and saying, Brad, I'd love to get the value of my house. Could you come out? And so that right away, it does a whole bunch of things. It filters people through like, you're someone who's going to expect a high level of care. All of these other pieces, you're not going to fall for it, that all these other little pieces of marketing are really the value when really that's what you should be expecting from every agent you're interviewing. And then even the agents that are doing that a little bit more, here's our unique value in addition to it. And I think one of the next things.
Let me mention one thing, if you don't mind, because a couple of things I just want to kind of set this up. I love the first part because basically what you've done is you've taken all of the competitors that are the potential people that are coming in. And I think you and I've talked about this before, and you're basically taking all of that and putting them all in this box, so to speak. Right. And so they're here. And let me tell you what we do outside of that, because we're going to do all of that, but we're going to set that apart. And that is such a great way to frame this in a way that sets you apart immediately on that. And the second thing I would say is if somebody's watching this, and let me just say, if you don't have the reach that Brad's talking about with the video, let me say this. The odds are the reason why you got that appointment is something. It may be that you're the neighborhood expert because you geographically farm extremely well in there. So highlight whatever that is, that differentiator there. There's all of these things of framing these things. What I love about this, the framework of this is people can put themselves in this and play to their own strengths in a way that generates the odds are, and it's been my experience, the typical person that we're getting these listing appointments, in most cases now, we're getting those appointments based on something we did. It's not just because they just found us on Google sometimes, but the majority of it, but there's a reason why you're standing out on Google for some reason, but for some reason you've attracted them. And if they've set the appointment, remember that the reason they've set the appointment is because whatever it was you were doing, your case, a lot of times video, a lot of times it can be something else or someone else. That's what's attracted them, or you wouldn't be sitting in their kitchen with them, literally going through these things. So I love the fact that you're highlighting and you're setting it apart of what you do differently. And so let's go into that kind of what those next steps are, because man, if people would just follow those first two steps, you're going to set yourself apart from 90% of the people that are walking in on listing appointments out there. So man, this is good stuff, Brad. Please keep going.
I'd say the next thing is I kind of use this thing called the 8-mile framework. And this is something completely coined by me. And the idea is that I come in, when I got my license like 7 years ago, I realized right away, I just had so much self-doubt and self-disbelief that I thought, man, there's a million reasons why you shouldn't hire me. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I got into video was so I could actually compete with some of these other amazing agents in my market. And so, for example, up in Northwest Calgary, there's a lady by the name of Kelly McKelvey, a fantastic woman, an incredible agent, 25 years experience. She has local knowledge. She sold a home on almost every block in the Northwest Calgary. She's so unbelievably kind. I'm happy to lose a listing or a deal to Kelly because she's just
Yeah.
that high of a quality of a person. But I also got to feed my family. And so what I realized was, you know what? These people are going to wonder, why not? Why wouldn't I go with Kelly? Why would I go with Brad? And so I think one of the reasons why an agent wants to ask themselves or come from this position of humility would instead of one of this, confidence, like I'm going to win this deal and I'm the best and all this stuff. It's like I needed something to hinge that on. And so I thought, well, you know what? When I talk with someone, I'm going to bring it up right away. So the 8 Mile strategy is basically do what Eminem did during that rap battle, right?
Yes.
Well, what he did was say, hey, listen, you're probably going to make fun of this and then fun of this and then fun of this. And then you're probably going to say this and you're going to be right. But what about that? And so what I would do, I would say, listen, if you're thinking of selling up in Rocky Ridge, my guess is you'd probably consider someone like Kelly. Kelly's a fantastic agent and she has done a lot of work in this area. What we're really seeing, though, over the last few years, how the markets shift is it's just not as local as it used to be. In fact, about 25% of our buyers are from Ontario, 20% of our buyers are from British Columbia. Now, I'll be honest with you, no one can reach them the way our team can because of the marketing that we do. And so what's great about that is when 50% of the people buying in Calgary right now are not from Calgary, they just don't know the household names. Right. And so because of that, I want to make sure that your property is found where they are. And I'll say things like, I know bus benches are cool and I know that the community events are awesome. Here's the thing. We have to compete against great agents like Kelly, and that's made us better. We've had to find other ways to provide more value. And because my name doesn't have that same cachet, what I'm going to do, and what I probably will never do, is I'm never going to be on a bus bench or a billboard. Because what I've realized is that doesn't help me sell your home. The first time that I see your house on someone else's bus bench or someone else's billboard, then I'll say, yeah, that works to serve you. But if it's just their face, then they're not selling your home, right? They're selling their name. And so I just believe that we live in a different time now. Like we now have all these different ways to get in front of the client. Even if you have a family dinner, you have 5 people over, what's everyone doing? They're staring at their phones. So if everyone is staring at their phones, then that's where I want to be found. I want your house to be found on YouTube, when they're on Instagram, when they hop onto TikTok, if they're a businessman and they're over on LinkedIn, right? If they're more on a community network and they're on Facebook, I want your home to be found where people are at. And so that's a big value for them. So I'll say, listen, yeah, I don't have maybe that same experience, as someone like a Kelly or, a Rob in my area. But what I do have is an incredible track record in this area. And let me show you some of those sales. And so I'll always highlight that, but I want to first address the thing that I think they might be feeling about me. Like, why would I go with this guy? Or does he really have the experience or that? I want to address all of that up front. So I tell them how to think about that. And then from there, I really over-index on the thing that makes me special. Now, you could remove video from this entire conversation, like you were saying, and make it about the geographic farm. Or you could make it, if you're an agent that's been working in a community for 25 years, you could just reverse this whole strategy and play against a guy like me and talk about why, you've sold a home on every block in this community and you understand the conversations, you know how it's changed over the years. You have intimate knowledge of the communities, the homeowner associations, whatever it is. You should be taking everything that happens in a real estate transaction and marginalizing that into just a standard level of care, and then take all of the stuff that you do that is specified and specific to you and make that 100% your differentiator. For us, that's video. And the reason why I think video is powerful, another thing that I do on the listing video, on the listing presentation, is I like to talk a little bit about inside ball. There's nothing more when you go to buy a vehicle and the guy's like, listen, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to go talk to the manager. He wants us to sell 4 more vehicles, by the end of the day on Sunday, and I don't think we're going to hit this target. So I think I can probably get you a price. There's always some sort of little hook or some little thing that you feel like, I'm not supposed to know this. I know this. Maybe this is a line or something, but man, he's telling me something that happens inside the industry, and that builds a little bit of trust. And so, without it being like a sleazy car salesman sort of technique, what I would suggest is this. Inside talk. One of the things that happens is I like to tell people, especially because I know that we invest a lot of money into our listings. I don't want a listing that's not going to sell. So what I like to tell right off the bat is say, hey, listen, have you ever heard of a term called buying the listing? It's sort of an insider term inside the industry. And people say, wait, what's that? And I'm saying that's where I tell you whatever you want to hear the value of your home is. So 30 days later, I can tell you that we need a price drop rather than me being able to sell your home overpriced to everyone else in the market. And so here's the thing. Today, at the risk of losing your listing, at the risk of you working with someone else, I want to just choose honesty here and have a real honest dialogue around the pricing of your home. Because if you tell me your home's worth 1.2 and I tell you it's worth 1.1, right off the bat, you're going to be thinking that I'm just trying to sell your home for too cheap. But a lot of agents will tell you whatever you want to hear. And so be very careful about that. Always let them tell you the value that they think it is first. Don't tell them the value. And the reason is because if you say, hey, I think my home's worth 1.25, and they tell you, yeah, I think we can try that out at 1.25, you'll know that they're buying the listing because they're looking at all the same data, and that data is saying 1.16. And if it's not saying 1.16, let's go over where I'm wrong, what I'm missing. And when I say that insider ball, that inside term, people immediately lose that price objection because they feel all of a sudden like, wait a second, the next person that's coming in and telling me this, is he telling me what I want to hear? Like I like to tell people, listen, days on market is death on market. And so if you have a house that's on the market for way too long, that home is going to sell for less than it would have with the right pricing strategy off the bat. That's an actual fact. The problem is that someone has to be an adult enough to have that conversation with you and risk you being upset about it. And so here's the thing. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this pricing strategy, but I think this is the range. I think these are the way what we, this is what we want to target. This is the benefits from going the high end of the range, the low end of the range. But you need to understand that if we're going to do this thing right, if you guys are serious about moving on, then we would love to have a serious conversation about the value. To be fair, the value might be higher than what you're thinking. I don't know that it's going to be lower. We haven't went through those comps yet, but I want you to know that it's going to be an honest conversation about what it will sell today, not what people are expecting, not what you're maybe just hoping to get. That could be more or less. I don't know.
Yeah, Brad, first off, the M&M reference was unexpected and I really love it. I mean, I can just see, what I mean? I went straight to the rap battle in my head, you know what I mean? And understanding that is such a, there's the psychology of selling is so critically important. And the way you're framing all of this just as a natural flow through a natural conversation that you're having with a seller, where it's almost like, it used to be you were sitting across the table from them. It's almost like the chairs are moving onto the same side of the table with every word you're saying. You know what I mean? Where we're becoming a team rather than someone who is, I'm trying to get you to price this as low as possible, sell as quick as possible. So this is all so good. And I love the way that you've framed everything and then you've brought it back to your strength, because that strength is what attracted them. And now you're highlighting that strength and showing it how it separates you from there. So how does this typically flow from here? I mean, we're at a place, and the inside ball also is just brilliant from a standpoint that everybody that wants to be a part of that. And the second that you kind of give some information and our buddy Jimmy, our mutual friend Jimmy McAnee, he talks about, I want to have people when I'm sitting with them nodding. I want the head nod that they're agreeing. They're like, yeah, that is absolutely correct. And I think all of that, especially on the inside ball, is where we get those head nods that we're all looking for that help lead to that opportunity for us to work with them. So where do we go from here? We're talking inside ball. We've gone through kind of the 8 Mile framework. Where does it go from here?
Well, I'm going to give you a bit of I'm going to make this part of the conversation a little bit specific to what we do when it comes to our video marketing,
Great.
and something that I believe other agents can do as well. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a YouTube channel. It just needs to mean that you have some sort of method or medium to tell a bit of a story about their home through video. And so the way I do that is I say, listen, you guys, what the biggest mistake that sellers make in your position right now, as you're interviewing different real estate agents, is you think you're hiring someone to sell your house, and you're actually not. You're hiring someone to help you with the negotiation and the process and all of that stuff. But 97% of the time, the person that's going to sell your house is the buyer's agent to the buyer. Because the person that you're hiring today to sell your house will never speak to the buyer 97% of the time. So how does that make you feel, right? The difference is all of a sudden, like you think you're getting this, but you're actually getting that over there. So if I've found one hack in all of real estate when it comes to selling homes, is I want to speak directly to the buyer. Just that simple. Because no one values your home the way you do. It's your words coming out of my mouth and into the buyer's ears, and it bypasses the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent, who has no skin in the game for that buyer buying your home. That buyer's agent is going to sell the house that the buyer wants. And that's it. He's not going to lean them one way or another because, it was built by this builder versus that builder. If a person walks in and they said, oh man, I wanted a 5-bed, 4-bath, and they walk into a 3-bed, 1-bath, but it just hits them. That's why we call buyers. That's why we say buyers are liars, is because they'll walk in and say, oh, man, yeah, but that's that thing that connects them with it. So if a buyer is going to go off of their gut like that, if they're going to go off of a feeling, what I like to tell the sellers is, listen, I want to be the one that when you tell me the story about your home, the way the sun comes in through that south-facing window in December, where you have your coffee in the morning, what it's meant to have a yard this size, for your family, how you guys enjoyed this like renovation you did in your kitchen. You tell me those stories. Let me communicate those stories in a 7-minute video. In that video, they'll have to press play once. The challenge with the MLS is there's 50 different photos on there. And, if you don't start with the front of the house and then some of the main areas, no one's clicking through to that 13th picture just to see that 13th picture where you renovated the bathroom, because that's a lot of actions. And if you understand marketing and the internet, you realize that every click is another point of friction. And so what's cool about what we do is you press play once, and then it's your words coming out of my mouth into the buyer's ears. The buyer will hear the story of your home. They'll understand why it has value. If you're hiring an agent to sell your home based on the average price per square foot in the community, you don't need me. But my guess is you don't want to sell your home for the average price per square foot in this community, because your home is different. It has value that if only someone understood it, they would value it too. And so the challenge is we need to get someone past the average price per square foot. We need them to get emotionally invested. So what better way could we do so, right, than through music, emotion, storytelling? We showcase your home. Now, you, Mr. Seller, you guys have a beautiful property here. It's 2 acres and it's 4,000 square feet. If I called you on a Saturday morning and said, hey, listen, someone wants to come out and see it at 1 p.m. today, how hard would it be for you to get 2 acres and your 4,000 square foot home ready for that showing? Probably pretty hard. How would you feel if they walked in and they said, man, I didn't realize this was the layout. It's not for me. And they leave after 15 minutes. So here's the thing is, I want less showings, but higher quality showings. I want pre-qualified showings. The best way to do that is to have you get your home ready once. We capture a beautiful cinematic video of the grounds of your property. You've only cleaned it once. And then we get thousands upon thousands, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes 100,000+ views on your property. That is a great ROI for your efforts in getting it ready for showing. And then that offers or works as a first showing. And because I don't get to talk to every one of those buyers, I guarantee every one of those buyers that are seeing that video gets to talk to me. They get to listen to me. And what we find is our sellers have always said in the past is like, Brad, when we saw your video, you communicated all the things that we loved about it onto them. And my real goal here is not to say, hey, I'm a great presenter or we make great videos or anything. My goal in the transaction is to not be a barrier. I don't want to be a piece of communication away or a delay in communication or not capturing something or not passing something along. I want to pull every lever I possibly can so the agent is not the issue. And so if you don't have exposure, you just don't know what the issue actually is, and that's a challenge. And so that's the biggest thing that we've done is we've used that video as a way to save you work, to pre-qualify those showings, and then on top of it, to tell your home story so we can get an emotionally invested showing.
Yeah. And Brad, I love a couple things here. The compliment instead of, tearing down other agents, talking about even like some of the things that are done differently. Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned kind of 7-minute video. Is there a typical time frame you want with a video? And is there a flow to the type of those home videos that you're trying to do to pack as many of those stories, I guess you could say, into those videos?
Well, the way I look at it is that if we don't tell a story in the video, then we haven't done our job, right? I know there's you can get great views and a lot of videos on quick TikToks and Instagrams and where you just give the highlight reel, and all of that can work. What I've seen work best though is always have to have some sort of a story. Now, not every home has a great story to tell, honestly, right? But usually then there is a story for someone. It's a story for an investor. It's a story maybe for a downsizer. Maybe it's a story for someone. Maybe it's the community that becomes the story, right? Or the opportunity or the potential. That's the story, right? Like a raw piece of land. It's a canvas that you can now, paint what you want your life to look like. You tell a story around something. That's what we really are. I think this is one of the things I admire about Ryan Serhant the most, is that he's done such an amazing job of giving, I think, value back to the salesperson, where there's no dishonor in actually selling, and actually amplifying those features and telling those stories and becoming a champion for your clients. And that's what I wanted to do. I like to say that as listen, I want to champion what your goals are with this property, right? And so if you're choosing someone to get the word out, well, who are you going to choose? You're going to likely choose the person that has the biggest reach, right? The person that has the loudest amplifier. And so that's been something that we've really focused on.
Yeah, this is good. And I think a lot of times, a lot of people will come into presentations and they do extremely well on presenting, but they're not sure how to bring it to a head and ask for the business or to close or just to say, hey, those kind of things. How does this wrap up towards the end? I think that's where a lot of people maybe that don't have as much experience have a little tension there with that. How does this look for you as you're wrapping up that appointment to move towards, are we ready to get started?
So, I mean, first off, I don't think you ever ask, right? It's sort of my policy. This was my policy. And when I was a single guy, you'd hear someone like, man, your buddy's like, man, I asked this girl out and she said no. And I'm like, wow, whoa, dude, why would you open yourself up to that kind of rejection, man? I would never do that, right?
Yes.
It's just going to be like a continuation of the conversation, right? So what I would say to them is just so listen, if you guys wanted to move forward, it does take us a little bit of time to schedule this in with our media team. We do have some other stuff in there. So, I mean, we could probably get in there as soon as Tuesday or Wednesday next week, but that likely means that we're going to need 3 to 4 days to do our best work, to create something that's really special for the editing, to get it in place. But, with that 2 weeks timeline, we could basically be on the market by, September 1st. Right. And usually that's just as long as they know what the next step is, they'll just continue to take it. Right. If you shine a flashlight and you say it's safe to move one step forward, that's okay. And at no point are you don't have to ask them to sign the contract or anything like that. Usually by the time that they're wanting to ask you to, and this is a little bit different now than with buyers, of course, But usually with sellers at this point in time, it's just like they're the ones who should be saying, so then we would be signing the contracts now to get this started. Like, how's that look? Right. And then it's just like, that's just a mechanism, or like, like just a function of process on the way to actually getting to the bigger thing. So if you're not telling a larger arcing story about not just about what you do, but a larger arcing story of how this listing and their goals and all of this stuff ties together with your timeline, your schedule, and what you guys can do to sort of team with them. Like you said, getting around the table and getting on the same side. I love that analogy, because at that point in time, like, it just seems so awkward for them to say, well, just get back to the other side of the table there. I'm going to be talking to a few other people, right? Because they're not looking for an agent. They're looking to sell their home for the best price and find a buyer. And so it's just literally like, you've already got this person on your side who's planning out those next steps, who's giving you a few suggestions. And, I often talk about leadership as not knowing all the answers. Leadership is often just connecting people with the answers that they need. So if I'm sitting there with them and it's getting to that dull part of the conversation where it's like normally they would be reciprocating a bit more or all of that stuff. What I like to then say is like, I have to show some more value. I have to find some way. So I have to say, like, I noticed there was like a few little touch-ups around here. I've actually got a handyman guy. My guess is $500-600. Would it be helpful if maybe later today I sent you over his contact? Right. I want some way to keep this like, there is no period at the end of this listing presentation.
That's right.
This is a comma at best. And so this conversation keeps going until it's so awkward for them to say, look, I appreciate you following up. I appreciate all the stuff. We love the videos and stuff, but it's my sister and I have to go with her because she's a realtor, right? But we still want you to be involved, right? But that approach I find is the way to secure most. Like all the data says, oh, if you talk first to the client, they go 80% of the time with the first person. You can rely on all that stuff. I don't think you necessarily need to. What I've found is you find a lot of people explore the idea for a little while, talk to a few different people, leave it for 3-4 months or all that stuff. So by the time they're coming to you, if you're relying on the numbers, you're going to likely find that that's not a great strategy. I think the numbers work because people don't rely on them. They rely on their value and communicating that to their sellers.
I completely agree. And I love that analogy from a standpoint of that the conversation just continues. And the next steps is so critically important. And especially when it's natural, like you're talking about. Listen, this has been super helpful. I know people got some value out of this. Brad, I'm really excited about some of the stuff you got going on. Do you mind sharing a little bit about kind of what's going on right now and where some agents can take that next step and find some additional information that you've been so generous with helping agents? Where would they go to find that?
Okay, well, I think Jimmy, you've probably inspired me over the years. I know you've sat down with so many great agents and shared what's been working for them and brought so much value to the industry. One of my favorite things that I've done in the last 6 or 7 years is I didn't do anything on my own. I built my brand. I learned this business by surrounding myself with some of the best minds in the industry. And I tried to keep showing up with something of value to offer, so that way I could sit at the table with them and receive something of value. So it's been a really cool thing. So one of the things that I've wanted to do for a long time is just let people in on what those conversations look like. And I'm really passionate about agents building personal brands for themselves. I believe it's recession proof. I believe it's NAR settlement proof. I believe it's literally the unlock to agents working in this business with clients that want to work with them, that make it fun and exciting, that gives them that work-life balance. And I believe that those conversations usually are super valuable. So I've started to record some of them. I've got a little podcast called The Branded Podcast. It's a branded interview series. Basically, I'm talking with agents with some of the best personal brands in the industry, guys like Tyler Hassman, who kills it on TikTok, Jimmy Mackin, who we all know and love, is on a mission to be the most useful man in real estate, Sharon Sriracha, a good friend of mine, Paige Steckling, one of the most powerhouse video creators out of Utah, and some other really brilliant minds in the different spaces like YouTube, guys like Nolan Mathias. This is going to be, this might actually already be 1 or 2 episodes out. It's going to be on the Broke Agent Media, or BAM, YouTube channel. You'll see shorts on Now BAM every Wednesday and links to their articles. So I've got a 6 episode first season. Super excited to share it. So go check it out over there. Also, I have a little YouTube channel that helps agents kind of understand exactly what I do, called Brand It Like Brad. And hopefully you'll come check out that. Maybe give me some feedback. Let me know what I can do to, provide a little bit more value, or take it in a different direction, so we can, keep rising together.
Yeah, listen, we'll have all the information down bottom in the description of the YouTube video as well. And first off, let me just say, Brad, thanks for everything over the years, man. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for the inspiration and just how you give to the real estate community as a whole. It's inspiring to me. And man, I always enjoy my time with you. So make sure you go out and you thank Brad. We'll have all that in the description where you can see all of those things. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching the video. I specifically chose the video below for you because it builds on the one you just watched. I hope it's helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.